Okay, so let me ask you this. If you knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that the difference between success and catastrophic failure
Hmm.
in any high-pressure situation, I'm talking a border negotiation, a critical surgery, or even surviving an actual crisis, if it all came down to just one thing,
Right,
and
right.
that one thing wasn't skill, but the sheer, almost terrifying composure of your mind, what would you pay for that instruction manual?
Well, that mental composure, that
Yeah.
unshakable core you're talking about,
Hmm.
that is the pursuit of invincibility.
Exactly.
And that pursuit is, I mean, it's exactly what Miyamoto Musashi was documenting. He wasn't just suggesting mental toughness is, nice to have.
Not at all.
He was claiming that achieving a state where you're considered invincible is a practical, achievable goal.
Invincibility. And not just by perfecting your body, but by refining your spirit so deeply that you can conquer 10 opponents with your mind. And this is after you've learned to deal with men with your body.
That's the key.
That idea, conquering the mind first, that is the whole thesis of the warrior we're getting into today. We are talking about the ultimate instruction manual for self-mastery, written by one of history's most feared and disciplined warriors.
And this is so much more than just ancient strategy. This is Musashi's final radical code of individual self-reliance. It's really a blueprint for anyone seeking profound mental clarity and total autonomy.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're unpacking a stack of sources that go deep into Miyamoto Musashi's 21 principles of Dokutu, which means the way of walking alone.
A powerful title.
It is. And look, this isn't just philosophy. It's a system for achieving an unshakable mind. And it feels like it's tailored perfectly for the pressure of the modern world.
It really does.
So our mission today is to distill these strict, almost counterintuitive rules into wisdom you can actually use. We're going to distinguish his philosophy of self-reliance from, the institutionalized warrior codes and draw some really powerful, surprising parallels to Stoicism and Zen.
And our deep dive is leaning on transcripts and commentary that give us the direct precepts from the Dogchut itself and also from the Book of Five Rings.
Which gives us that crucial context, right?
Exactly. The historical and philosophical context, we need to understand why these rules are so necessary for anyone who wants to achieve mastery in their chosen field.
Okay, so let's start at the source. For anyone listening who might not be familiar, who was Miyamoto Musashi? And why do his final words, written in a cave of all places, still resonate so much centuries later?
Miyamoto Musashi, I mean, he was born around 1584, and he is just a giant figure in Japanese history. A total polymath, not just a brilliant swordsman, but also a skilled painter, a writer, a philosopher.
And he was mostly a runin, right? A masterless warrior.
Yes, and that is absolutely key to understanding his independence.
And his track record in dueling is, well, it's frankly astonishing.
Astonishing is putting it lightly. He won his first duel at the incredible age of 13. And throughout his life, he's said to have engaged in over 60 duels without a single loss. He was in some of the major conflicts of the Sengoku era, like the Battle of Sekigahara. He saw the ultimate consequences of conflict and institutional loyalty right up close.
So after this entire lifetime of constant engagement, of mastery, he makes a pretty radical choice for his retirement.
He really does. Towards the end of his life, he was being hosted by this powerful lord, Hosokawa Tadatoshi. When Hosokawa passed away in 1645, Musashi, who was, sensing his own final outcome was approaching, made a truly symbolic decision.
He retreated.
He retreated entirely to the Reigandu, the Spirit Rock Cave in Kumamoto.
He literally chose a cave as his final office. I mean, that just signals an intense focus on what he was leaving behind, on his legacy.
It does. And it was there, in those last months, that he finished his two great works. First, Go-Rin no Sho, or the Book of Five Rings, which is his comprehensive strategy for combat and for life.
Right.
And second, the document we are diving into today, the incredibly concise 21-precept Dokudu.
The Dokut. The way I go alone. It really is his final distilled code of conduct, isn't it?
It's the ultimate expression of radical self-governance. It just strips away all the extraneous social demands and focuses purely on what an individual has to master internally.
So the Dokudu is kind of the philosophical anchor for the practical strategy in the Book of Five Rings.
That's a great way to put it. And both of them, both works, are built around a single central mental state that Musashi saw as just non-negotiable for success.
And that state is Fudoshin.
Precisely. Fudoshin.
Okay, so let's unpack that. It's a core concept. We hear the term immovable mind thrown around, but what's the actual strategic value of Fudoshin? Beyond just sounded tough.
Well, Fudoshin translates as the immovable mind or the immovable heart. and its strategic value is total operational clarity.
Okay.
It represents a mind that is so centered, so tranquil, that no external event, a sudden tactical shift on the battlefield, a huge financial risk in business, a personal crisis, nothing can disturb its composure or, pull it off balance.
So it's the state where mental calmness, not just raw skill or aggression, becomes the real sign of a master.
It's the definitive sign. And it's not about being stubborn or resistant. It's about being so internally balanced
Mm.
that all that external chaos, it just has no emotional surface to stick to.
Resilience defined by tranquility. I like that.
That's a perfect way to phrase it. This ideal state is so profound, it's actually embodied by a deity in Japanese Buddhism, Fujimusha, the immovable one,
Right, the wrathful looking one.
the very one. He's depicted as this wrathful protector, symbolizing unwavering determination, righteous faith. He carries a sword to cut through mental delusions.
And a rope to bind violent passion.
Exactly. It's this idea of fierce composure. A samurai would look at that image and see the goal. Face danger without fear, stay centered, and surmount every single obstacle, psychological and physical.
So if Fudoshin is the goal, Musashi must have had a roadmap for the things that stop us from getting there.
He did. He clearly outlined the psychological roadblocks. He called them the shikai, or the four sicknesses of the mind. To get to Fudoshin, you have to first inoculate yourself against these four vulnerabilities.
Let's dedicate some serious time to these because these sicknesses are absolutely destroying modern focus. The first one is fear, or kyo. How does a warrior deal with the paralysis of fear?
So fear, or kyo, is defined as the state where the spirit is displaced.
Displaced.
It distorts your expectations, it throws your intent off kilter, and most crucially, it pulls your mind away from the current reality.
Okay, so what's the remedy?
Musashi's remedy is radical presence. You have to stay completely in the now. If you're anticipating the future, the final outcome of the duel, the result of the presentation, you are no longer reacting effectively to what's happening right in front of you.
The sources mention not being preoccupied with a single spot.
Yes, that's
But-
key. It means seeing everything in its entirety, effortlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Fear often gives us tunnel vision. Right?
Yeah, you fixate on the threat.
You fixate on the immediate threat, the tip of the sword, the looming deadline. Musashi insists that by keeping this broad, easy awareness, the mind can't be surprised or fixated. And that eliminates the fertile ground where fear takes root. You look, but you don't stare.
Okay, that makes sense. The next one is doubt, or nije. I get that doubt is bad, but what's the specific strategic consequence?
Doubt leads directly to paralyzing indecision. And in any high-stakes scenario, that's the same as just creating an opening for the enemy.
It's hesitation.
It's total hesitation.
Yeah.
If you're not certain of what you're doing, if your strategic plan is only, say, 80% committed, that 20% of doubt is exposed immediately. Musashi demanded 100% conviction. He wrote that you should never, under any circumstances, depend on a partial feeling.
So a half-hearted decision is actually worse than a bad decision.
Far worse, because it guarantees wavering execution. If things aren't crystal clear in your mind, then you have to wait, or you have to create a situation where they become clear before you move. Doubt is a strategic liability because it's just inherently unstable.
And the third sickness, surprise, or kyaku. This seems connected to that first point about awareness.
It is very much so. Surprise happens when the mind is unprepared and gets shocked by some external event that it hadn't monitored or even considered possible. The countermeasure for this is anshin.
Zanshin, the remaining mind.
Right. This is total, constant vigilance and awareness of your surroundings, potential threats, the undercurrents in a room, all contingencies.
So for our modern world, this is like being blindsided by a competitor's move or a market shift that really you should have seen coming.
Precisely. And achieving zanshin in daily life requires that the mind lives only in the present. It can't be wandering to the past, which is regret, or to the future, which is anticipation and fear.
Sounds exhausting.
It's a highly disciplined state, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's about being prepared for the expected and ready for the unexpected without the preparation itself becoming a burden. It's that residual attention that keeps you centered even after the immediate task is done.
And finally, the one that seems the most counterintuitive, captivation or waku. How can focusing too intently on one thing destroy my composure?
Because captivation is fixation. It happens when the mind lingers, it stops on a single thought or an idea, an object of feeling.
Okay.
In a duel, if your mind fixates on the gleam of the enemy's sword or the potential final outcome, you lose your fluidity. You lose sight of the whole picture. Musashi knew that fixation is the way to the final outcome. Fluidity is the way to life.
So if I'm fixating on a mistake I made yesterday, or I'm obsessing over one detail in a spreadsheet, I'm mentally captivated.
You are, exactly.
Yeah.
And the remedy here is to cultivate mushin, or no mind. This is the peak state of non-fixation.
Ah, Mushin. This is where the Zen connection really comes in strong.
It is. The goal is for the mind to reflect reality perfectly, like,
Mhm.
like water adopting the shape of its container without any effort, or a clean mirror reflecting whatever is placed in front of it without any distortion.
Water can be a trickle or a wild sea, but it flows.
It always flows. The mind must be open and unconstricted. If you allow even a slight twist, that momentary fixation, it can become a major strategic error. Mushin allows you to look at things from a high point of view without the obstruction of your ego or your fixed ideas.
That's a really powerful realization. So the key to being immovable isn't rigidity at all. It's being fluid enough to never get stuck on a single thought or emotion or object.
You have to purge those four sicknesses: fear, doubt, surprise, and captivation before you can even begin the real training.
And that training is the Dokdu.
That is the Dokdu. These 21 precepts are the regimen you follow daily to attain that immovable mind. They are a profound guide to self-discipline, minimalism, and emotional stoicism. And they're written almost entirely as negative sentences.
Why is that?
It's a rhetorical choice, meant to express this firm, personal determination. Do not do this. Do not seek that.
Okay, let's dive into the rules themselves. We'll group them thematically, starting with what you're calling the unspoken rule of reality: acceptance and non-resistance.
This begins with Rule 1, which is maybe the hardest of all. Accept everything just the way it is.
And that is so challenging for modern, highly motivated, goal-oriented people, right?
Right.
If I accept everything, it sounds passive. Why should I try to change anything if I'm just accepting reality?
And that's the crucial misunderstanding. Musashi's acceptance isn't passive surrender. It's objective observation, totally devoid of emotion.
Yeah.
Resistance to reality. Wishing the market was different, wishing your boss was fair, wishing the enemy wasn't so strong. That wastes enormous mental energy, and it creates suffering. Musashi wrote, "Truth is not what you want it to be, it is what it is, and you must bend to truth's power or live a lie."
So acceptance is about clearing the emotional deck so you can see the truth of the situation. And that's the only way to formulate a winning strategy.
Absolutely. The world does not care about your hopes or your desires. By objectively observing the situation as it is, you gain the strategic advantage because you're dealing with facts, not your subjective emotional interpretation.
This idea of acceptance flows right into Rule 6. Do not regret what you have done.
Because regret is just another form of resistance, isn't it? It's resistance to the past.
Right.
It's a waste of the spirit and a fixation on something that you cannot change. Musashi is demanding that you use your energy for the present action, not for dwelling on what's already done.
But what if I make a huge, costly mistake in a business venture, say? If I don't regret it, doesn't that make me kind of reckless?
Not at all.
Yeah.
It means you analyze the mistake, you acknowledge the action, you extract the lesson from it, and then you move on immediately to refinement. The commitment isn't to a single perfect outcome, it's to continuous self-improvement.
Temper yourself with 1,000 days of practice, refine yourself with 10,000 days of training.
Exactly. The past is a data point. The only variable you can still control is your current action.
And if we look outward, Rule 9 addresses our interactions with the world. Resentment and complaint are appropriate neither for oneself nor others.
Resentment and complaining are just these toxic internal burdens. Complaining is self-pity. Resentment is blaming others. Both of them distract the mind from objective action and destroy that state of fudoshin.
So true strength comes from self-reliance.
It has to. If you rely on the universe to be fair or on other people to apologize, you've basically outsourced your own emotional stability.
A warrior can't afford to carry the weight of grudges or self-pity. Their focus has to be completely on the now and the task at hand. It sounds like he's advocating for a kind of radical accountability.
That's exactly right. Everything you need to get better, stronger, quicker, or smarter is within you. Musashi believed everything exists within yourself, and looking outward for blame or for pity is a weakness the enemy will absolutely exploit.
This radical self-reliance is a perfect setup for his most rigorous principles, his approach to asceticism. Let's move to the unspoken rule of minimalism, detachment from desire. This is where the code gets really uncompromising.
This section is the very core of his radical individualism. It's all based on the belief that clarity and focus can only arise from ruthlessly shedding unnecessary desires and attachments.
And it starts with Rule 5.
Rule 5, the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Be detached from desire your whole life long. Do not let attachments enslave you.
Okay, let me push back on this a little bit because in our modern context, we're told that emotional connection and desire, the desire for success, for love, that's what drives us. If I'm detached from desire, doesn't that just make my existence miserable and like robotic?
Musashi would argue that misery comes from the fear of loss. It comes from the anxiety that desire brings.
Mm.
Detachment is the ability to place emotional distance between yourself and events so that the outcome doesn't dictate your internal state. It doesn't mean you don't have feelings or goals. It means those things or goals don't become your master. They don't dictate your rational decision-making.
So it's non-attachment, not an absence of feeling. It's about cultivating clarity and focus by purging that constant yearning or anxiety over external stuff.
Precisely. You have to be free from the blinding fear of loss to make rational, centered decisions when the pressure is at its highest.
So how does he apply this to something as basic as just enjoyment? Rule 2, do not seek pleasure for its own sake.
This is a call for intentionality and moderation. Pleasure should be sought from something lasting, not something fleeting or detrimental. He's not denouncing pleasure entirely, but he insists that the pursuit of fleeting surface-level pleasure must not become the basis for your decisions.
So you focus on deep, lasting fulfillment, like the mastery you get after 10,000 days of training, not momentary indulgence.
Exactly.
Okay, moving into relationships. Rules 10 and 11 are extraordinarily severe for anyone living in society today. Do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love, and in all things, have no preferences.
For a warrior whose entire life hinges on staying centered and objective, love and lust are seen as these powerful, transient emotions that can blind you. They can make you vulnerable to manipulation or even self-betrayal.
So the mandate is self-respect first.
Self-respect first. You cannot burn down the foundation you've spent years building for a transient emotion.
That seems incredibly isolating, though. Doesn't that mean Musashi is rejecting the fundamental human need for connection?
He's placing self-actualization and strategic clarity above an emotional connection that might compromise his integrity or his autonomy. He's choosing independence over vulnerability. I mean, it is called the way of walking alone, after all.
Fair point. And Rule 11, in all things, have no preferences. That suggests I can't even prefer coffee over tea or one business strategy over another. How is that practical?
Well, having no preferences means cultivating an open, flexible mind, one that's ready to try all things and desire none. A strong, fixed preference is a form of rigidity.
A weakness.
It's a weakness. It means you risk becoming narrow-minded, or missing new experiences, or being unable to adapt when your preferred situation isn't available. If you prefer the high ground, but the low ground is practically superior in a sudden downpour, your preference just became a liability.
The immovable mind is ready to operate effectively anywhere, with any tool, eating any food.
Exactly, and he extends this indifference to physical life with Rules 12 and 13. Be indifferent to where you live, and do not pursue the taste of good food.
These are classic ascetic disciplines, right? They're aimed at stripping away our reliance on external comfort.
They are. Musashi emphasizes that internal fulfillment is separate from external luxury. Whether you're living in a palace or a simple hut, shelter and warmth are enough. This just strips away the whole idea that external luxury provides internal fulfillment.
And the food rule, it's not about avoiding nourishment. It's about avoiding overindulgence and the mental energy spent on the pursuit of sensory pleasure.
That's it. Focus on necessity and simplicity to strip away the superfluous and achieve mental clarity. If your mind is constantly fixated on what you're going to eat for your next meal, it's not focused on the present strategy.
This intense focus on simplicity extends to possessions, which is incredibly relevant in our world of consumerism. Rule 14, do not hold on to possessions you no longer need, and Rule 16.
Do not collect weapons or practice with weapons beyond what is useful.
Right, and that's just the ancient call for intentionality and decluttering, both physically and mentally. Accumulating stuff you no longer need is a drain on your resources and your mental space. You're letting things anchor you.
Absolutely. And in the context of strategy and martial arts, Musashi's point about weapons is profound. Why is collecting too many tools a bad thing?
It's detrimental because your focus has to be on utility and mastery of the necessary tools, not on accumulating gadgets or tools for vanity's sake.
He argues that over-relying on one specific weapon or clipping too many that you only use poorly is dangerous. An enemy can easily find a weakness in an unmastered style. The lesson is to master the few things that matter completely.
So if I apply that to my job, it means mastering 2 or 3 core skills deeply rather than knowing 50 software tools superficially.
It means focusing your training energy where it counts the most. The path to mastery is narrow, and distractions are plentiful.
Okay, we've covered detachment and acceptance. Let's shift to the rules that reinforce the unspoken rule of focus: conviction and the way.
And we can start with Rule 4. Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world.
This feels like the ultimate humility check. But what's the strategic gain of thinking lightly of yourself?
The strategic game is flexibility and perspective. If you focus too much on your own ego, your importance, your reputation, you become rigid. You become blind to external threats and opportunities. Ego is a massive obstacle to motion.
The sources have a wonderful analogy for this.
They do. Musashi suggests that if something is too obscure to see, the more you squint in desperation to find the answer, the more obscure it becomes.
So what do you do?
Instead, try closing your eyes. That shift in perspective, taking the focus off your own frantic internal search, allows you to see the world more clearly when you open them again. Humility keeps the mind open to learning, adapting, and seeing the bigger picture.
The ultimate expression of this intense focus is his final principle, Rule 21. Never stray from the way.
This is Musashi's final demand for total conviction. If you choose a path, be it the way of strategy or the way of the warrior, you have to follow it exactly, with complete dedication. Or you abandon it entirely and find a new one. There's just no room for half measures.
If you can't place complete conviction in your actions, why do them at all? That demands incredible self-honesty.
Total commitment. You don't have time to waste energy just dabbling. Dedicate yourself wholly, or redirect your energy to a path where you can dedicate yourself wholly.
And the way is clearly not limited to just martial strategy. Musashi stresses the twofold way.
That's vital to understand. The true master must stick assiduously to the twofold way of the pen and the sword.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means mastering martial arts alongside peaceful accomplishments like literature, poetry, and painting. This ensures a broad, balanced perspective. It prevents the warrior from becoming a brute who only knows one dimension of life.
This sounds less like a strategy for winning a single duel and more like a strategy for total life mastery.
It is. Strategy, he wrote, cannot be mastered without a great deal of practice. And that practice has to be integrated into your normal life, allowing the spirit to remain unchanging and fluid across all contexts: art, writing, and combat.
Okay, let's move to the final core category: the unspoken rule of honor. Inner consistency. This section is where Musashi truly diverges from the institutional expectations of his time, particularly with Rule 20.
Which is, you may abandon your own body, but you must preserve your honor.
This rule is maybe the most profound statement of his individualism. We need to be clear here. Musashi's honor was fiercely personal and internal. He was his own judge of integrity, not his lord, not his peers.
Exactly.
So what does it mean to abandon your own body but preserve honor when we translate that into a modern context?
It means that you should never do anything that is incompatible with your internal, deeply held code of ethics. Your integrity, your honor, that's the only thing that truly defines you and creates your legacy.
You preserve that legacy, that personal character, even if it requires the ultimate sacrifice of comfort or reputation or even physical survival.
Your actions are what create you, and your legacy will far outlast your short time in this world.
And the sources make it clear that this philosophy is dramatically different from the institutionalized samurai code.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Traditional Bushido often required a warrior to preserve the honor of his lord. Sometimes it demanded a ceremonial ending of life to regain lost honor for the master.
But Musashi, the Ronin, he defined honor differently.
He defined it not through allegiance to a hierarchy, but through self-consistency and self-respect. His ultimate concern was preserving the character that earned him respect, independent of any master.
And his deep self-reliance is just perfectly crystallized in Rule 19. Respect Buddha and the gods without counting on their help.
This is pure, distilled autonomy. Musashi achieved his incredible success, over 60 duels without a loss, through his own effort, his own training, his own experience. For a person with such fierce self-confidence, relying on outside help, even divine intervention, it just compromises your personal autonomy.
So he's saying that if your belief is based on transactional expectations, you respect the gods because you expect blessings, then that belief isn't authentic.
And it collapses your personal responsibility. That's the critical insight. Gods are worthy of adoration in themselves. They are holy and venerable, not because they grant you blessings or success. There is no principle of give and take. You succeed because you trained for 10,000 days, not because you prayed.
Which reinforces that core belief that we are responsible for our own outcomes.
100%.
And this mentality ties back perfectly to the concept of accepting the ultimate reality, specifically Rule 17. Do not fear the final outcome.
Because fear of the final outcome is the ultimate distraction. It prevents you from living fully and acting decisively in the present. If you are constantly anticipating or praying for the future or fixating on what might be, you are unable to focus 100% on the only moment you can control,
The moment you're in right now.
the moment you are currently inhabiting. Musashi tells us that when you have purged the four sicknesses and mastered the way, you can suddenly make your body like a rock. 10,000 things cannot touch you. That is the ultimate practical reward.
The body of the immovable mind.
It's the highest state of psychological resilience.
That brings us to the bigger picture. We've meticulously analyzed the individual rules, but what's the grand strategy here? How does Musashi's code fit into the larger tapestry of philosophical thought, both in the East and the West? It feels like we should connect the dots.
I think we have to. And we should start by really solidifying the distinction between Musashi and the traditional codes of his time. The institutionalized code, Kajomichi, and later Tokugawa formalized Bushido. It all stressed chugi, or absolute loyalty, as the paramount virtue.
So the warrior existed to serve his master. The focus was on the external hierarchy.
Precisely. The goal was to maintain the social order through service, often demanded the warriors sacrifice their life for their lord. The famous story of the 47 Ronin.
A story of supreme loyalty.
It is, but it's the absolute antithesis of Musashi's path. They were loyal to a master who's already gone.
And Musashi the Ronin, the masterless man, he completely redefined the warrior's purpose.
His philosophy was practical, self-contained, and intensely individualistic. His purpose was self-actualization, not service or loyalty to an external party. His priority was to fight to win and to achieve mastery.
So his code is closer to Bushi-Katagi, the warrior temperament or spirit.
Right, which emphasizes internal character and skill rather than formalized allegiance.
So if institutional Bushido was about allegiance to a hierarchy, Musashi's Darkuju was about unwavering allegiance to the way, regardless of the master.
Loyalty to the self and to the path of truth. That's the fundamental difference. His definition of honor was self-imposed and absolute. This path of radical self-reliance required him to study every weapon, master both the peaceful and the fighting arts, and rely on no one, not even the gods.
Let's delve into those deep philosophical parallels, starting with Zen. The influence on his thought is just undeniable.
Oh, Musashi's thinking is steeped in Zen Buddhism, especially the concepts around emptiness and the unfettered mind. The final chapter of the Book of Five Rings is called the Void Book. It describes the way of emptiness, or sunyata.
Sunyata. Emptiness or voidness, that can be a tricky concept to grasp.
It's often misunderstood as just nothingness. But in Zen, sunyata describes the absence of an inherent self or a permanent essence in all things.
Okay.
It emphasizes that everything is interconnected and constantly changing. And if you can recognize this voidness, you recognize that nothing has a fixed, independent reality.
And how does that help a warrior win a duel?
If you appreciate the constant rhythm of nature and change, you can act spontaneously. You stop fighting with fixed ideas or with your ego. It connects directly back to Mushin, the no-mind acting spontaneously and intuitively.
Free from ego.
When you understand the principle of nothingness, you stop putting undue emphasis on the transient concerns of men, because in the grand scheme, they don't matter. This allows the spirit to remain unchanging and fluid through all circumstances.
So the ultimate Zen master is the one who is fully present, seeing reality as it truly is, constantly shifting and flowing.
Exactly. And this ability to see clearly without the distortion of desire or fixation leads us directly to the Western philosophical connection, Stoicism.
The parallels here are just striking. It's cross-cultural wisdom from 17th century Japan and ancient Rome. Where's the strongest overlap between Musashi's code and the teachings of, say, Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius?
The primary overlap is in emotional regulation, radical acceptance, and the focus on internal control. Both Musashi's Dokju and Stoicism emphasize self-control. Virtue, Musashi valued rectitude, or iki, and courage. You acceptance of fate and inner resilience.
The goal in both systems is to achieve an internal life that is unaffected by external, uncontrollable events.
Exactly. And Musashi's Rule 1, accept everything just the way it is. I mean, that truly feels like a warrior's translation of a core Stoic principle.
It perfectly echoes what Epictetus said, right? It isn't events themselves that disturb people, but only their judgments about them.
That's the one. Musashi is giving us the warrior version of this.
Yeah.
Focus your immense energy away from emotional overwhelm, all the subjective burdens we place on ourselves, and channel it toward objective observation and effective action.
So when Musashi tells us not to regret what we've done, or to avoid resentment and complaint, he's powerfully reinforcing the Stoic concept of focusing only on what you can control.
Your perceptions and your actions in the now.
Exactly, and this whole methodology allows you to master any high-stress environment, whether it's a duel or a deeply stressful negotiation. You reduce the subjective fear of failure by accepting the objective reality of the situation.
And that approach, emphasizing integrity, resilience, and clear-headed decision-making. It's had a massive resurgence today for a reason. The principles of Musashi and Seneca and Marcus Aurelius cut through all cultural differences to offer universal wisdom. Unwavering resolve comes from within.
So what does this all mean for the person walking their own way today? We've looked into Musashi's final words written in the solitude of a cave and found that personal mastery is less about finding some secret technique.
And more about radical self-discipline, extreme detachment, and unwavering conviction.
And the final astonishing result is the promise itself. When you master the way of strategy and embody these 21 principles, you can suddenly make your body like a rock. 10,000 things cannot touch you.
That is the immovable mind.
The challenge, though, as Musashi constantly stressed, is the difference between knowing this stuff theoretically and actually applying it.
All the difference in the world.
We've absorbed the reasoning of the way, but this wisdom means absolutely nothing until it becomes action. Musashi taught us that the way is attained only through constant, continuous practice.
You must temper yourself with 1,000 days of practice and refine yourself with 10,000 days of training.
And that training period isn't a literal timeline, is it?
Not at all. It's an attitude of total commitment. The real lesson is to stop only looking for the end result. If you only look for the end result without taking the time to delve deeply into the reasoning and the process of the study, you can't understand the art you're studying.
Focus on the reasoning, the process, and the development of the self.
That's where mastery lives.
So here is the final provocative thought for you to carry forward, a thought worthy of the Spirit Rock Cave itself. The way is chosen, not given. If you cannot place complete conviction in your actions, if you feel doubt or captivation or fear, why are you doing them?
A tough question.
What is the one principle from the Dokudu that you will adopt fully, starting today, as the way you walk alone?
The path of self-actualization requires total, unwavering commitment to self-mastery.
That's right. And the final rule of the Dokdu is that you can't walk the path alone without leaving a mark of integrity behind you. If this deep dive opened your mind to the reality of non-attachment and focus, then it's time to commit to your own training regimen.
If you want to refine your spirit and commit to those 10,000 days of training, metaphorically speaking, then step fully onto the way by subscribing to the deep dive and joining our digital dojo.
Hit the like button if you now understand the strategic difference between institutional allegiance and the radical path of self-actualization. And comment below with the single Dokdu rule you are committing to mastering this week, and tell us the practical way you're going to apply it.
And make sure you ring the bell so you never stray from the way we walk together, because the next truth is waiting just around the corner. Go make yourself immovable.